Welcome, everybody, to the NFL show on the Grizzly Truth Sports Network. I am your host, Mike Goodpaster. I want to welcome in my co-host, Anthony Cervino. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
All right. Now, I usually open up telling everybody about betnow.eu, but we're going to explain it in simpler terms because I've had a few tweets from people asking questions about betting online. There's a few people out there I know that have never done it. They're kind of worried about it. But you could go to betnow.eu and use the promo code TRUTH100. And what that promo code will do is if you deposit $100, they will give you $100 to bet with, all the way up to $500. So if you put in $500, that means you'll have $1,000 to play with. So you're getting a little bit of house money there. So if you put the $500 in, you get $500 of their money to play on. If anybody has any questions about sports betting or gambling or anything like that, of course, you can always direct message us, and we will walk you through it and explain it to you a little bit at a time. Anthony, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, because it said you had a poor connection. But you can go to betnow.eu, use the promo code TRUTH100 to get a 100% cashback bonus. So whatever you put in up to $500, you will double that money with house money, which there's no better way to gamble than with house money that's not yours. So make sure you can also go to thegrizzlytruth.com, click on the banner at the top of the page for betnow.eu. Use the promo code TRUTH100. All right, Anthony, last night had to be a sad night for you because the Cowboys could have damn near clinched the division if the Eagles would have lost that game.
Yeah, the way that game started, I really thought Green Bay was going to run away with the game. And the Packers had multiple opportunities to put that game away, and instead they were walking away with field goals. And then in the second half, into the red zone, and they, obviously on the final drive, Rodgers threw the pick, and then they came up short on a drive or two before that.
Yeah, the thing that's concerning to me here is we heard all this stuff about the Packers defense, about how they could run the ball. Last night, Aaron Jones, 13 carries for 21 yards. That's not going to get it done if you want to make a deep run into the playoffs or even win a very tough NFC North. And when you get the ball first and goal at like the 2-yard line or so, and you can't, have enough confidence to run the ball at least once from there to see what will happen, I think the running game for the Packers is still an issue. Now, I know the Eagles' front seven's better than most teams, but it's still an issue.
Early in the game, that first few minutes, Jamal Williams, who was Green Bay's power back, he was stretchered off the field. You can make the case that the Eagles player was a Barrett ejected for that hit.
Yeah, you can make that argument. But he wasn't ejected for the hit, and you still have to be able to run the ball, even if a running back goes down. And, the offensive line did not block well against the run. They pass blocked well, but the run blocking was lacking.
That Eagles front seven, it's hard for anybody to run on them. I don't even know if they've given up 100 total yards in the first 4 games.
Probably, because they gave up 98 last night. But 46 of it was to Aaron Rodgers running, though. Just running back-wise, they gave up like 24 yards. Because you had Geronimo Allison. He's not a running back, though, who gained like 7 yards on a carry.
Yeah, I'm talking about to your standard running backs.
Okay. Aaron Rodgers, 34 for 53, 422 yards. But we all know this. When you look at stats in an NFL game, usually if you're throwing the ball 50 times and you're running the ball 13 or 14 times, you're usually not going to win that game.
No, I don't know. Is it the Packers? Is it Matt LaFleur? I mean, what the hell is going on with Green Bay? Because, Aaron Rodgers, he had a 10-point lead, and I believe last night was the first time in his career he has ever lost with a 10-point lead at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't see where him and LaFleur are really getting along real well, but I don't know that for sure. But I do know this. Doug Peterson's a damn good football coach, and last night Carson Wentz played well, 16 for 27, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. But Jordan Howard, 15 carries, 87 yards. Miles Sanders, 11 carries, 72 yards. So even with, Deshaun Jackson down and missing some players, their ability to run the ball here, I think, was the key to this game.
Yeah, and they committed to Jordan Howard, and Jordan Howard had familiarity playing his whole career in Chicago. He's actually had, and I talked about this yesterday on my show, he's actually had success while he was a member of the Bears in like 4 out of 6 career games against the Green Bay Packers. I kind of had a feeling he would score. I didn't think he would score 3 times. But I did like Jordan Howard last night. I like Jordan Howard coming into the season. It's just a matter of will Philly commit to him. And he finally did get more touches than Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders wasn't even targeted in the passing game. Jordan Howard caught a couple targets and also scored a touchdown through the pass. If the Eagles could commit to Jordan Howard and then use Miles Sanders as a change of pace back, I think this offense is going to be more balanced and even better than if they're just dropping back with Carson Wentz 35 times a game.
Yeah, and the question is, did they do that because they were missing Deshaun Jackson, and when he comes back, are they going back to that? I think that's what you're getting to, right?
I mean, it's not like they have a lack of weapons. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, he didn't catch a pass last night, but, he has a good rapport with Carson Wentz. Last week he scored twice, so I don't know if it's a matter of just Deshaun Jackson or not.
Yeah, but I think Deshaun Jackson there may make you want to throw the ball vertically more than what you need to. Zach Ertz was huge last night, 7 receptions, 65 yards also. And if you're missing one of your big playmakers, Zach Ertz is the real deal at tight end.
Yeah, and I think the one that's going under the radar was a tight end that actually scored the touchdown. That's Dallas Goedert, who's kind of buried behind Zach Ertz on the depth chart. But, in a year or two, I think the Eagles ultimately move on from Ertz because Dallas Goedert's the real deal, and he's their tight end for the future. And Dallas Goedert almost ended up with the Dallas Cowboys, and the Eagles leapfrogged them in the draft 2 years ago to get him. So the Eagles have a pair of really good tight ends. This team's going to start getting healthier. They have a 10-day rest before they host the Jets. So the NFC East is going to get tight if Dallas somehow loses this weekend.
It's going to get tight even if Dallas doesn't lose this weekend. Because I think
the Eagles' schedule is tough coming up.
I know it's tough, but
I mean, after the Jets at home, they have to go to Minnesota. They go to Dallas. They go to Buffalo, then they're home with the Bears, home with the Patriots, home with the Seahawks. I mean, that's a tough stretch until they get the Dolphins and the Giants in December.
Yeah, but shouldn't the Cowboys have pretty much the same schedule?
Well, I don't think Dallas – they pretty much play the same schedule but 2 games.
Yeah, just maybe a difference on who you're at home against and who you're away against. All right, you want to talk a little NFL news? Or do you have anything else before we leave the Eagles and Packers game?
Do we have any NFL news? I mean, aside from, playing back who didn't practice yet this week, the Buccaneers are getting Chris Godwin back. He missed practice all week, but he did return today. It looks like he's trending to play. Same thing with Devin Singletary and the Buffalo Bills. So 2 offensive players who hasn't been practicing, returning, and same thing with Mark Andrews. He didn't practice yet. The elite tight end, or you could almost call him elite with the Baltimore Ravens. He had a foot injury. He didn't look 100% last week against the Chiefs. He took a couple days off, but he is practicing for the Cleveland Browns.
All right, and we didn't talk because we weren't on the air yesterday about Melvin Gordon and what he could mean to the Chargers, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers, they start 1-2. It seems like every year. Now they're getting Melvin Gordon back, and as well as Austin Eckler played in Melvin Gordon's absence, it is clear that the Chargers are missing the explosiveness and the versatility of Melvin Gordon. Um, Eckler will still have a role, but Gordon, it might take him a week or two. He's not playing on Sunday. He will play most likely in week 5. I don't know. Maybe they ease him in for a game or two, but he is going to pick up where he left off last year. And he's really going to improve this Chargers offense that kind of struggled here and there.
All right, so we have a question for a topic because we're a little short on topics today. Tomorrow, of course, we'll be on to pick all the games for this weekend. But we've got Josh Simpson. This is from a Twitter direct message. He wants to know who out of the undefeated teams do we think are Super Bowl contenders or pretenders? So this is not playoffs. This is Super Bowl contenders and pretenders. And Josh seems like he's a Buffalo Bills fan. So we'll start off with the Bills, which I think there's a no-brainer here. If we're talking Super Bowl, they're pretenders.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills got off to a hot start. But then they're going to, starting with this weekend of New England Patriots. The Patriots are absolutely rolling right now. If somehow the Bills can win this game, then we can talk about possibly the Buffalo Bills being a contender. But right now, I can't put it there.
Well, I think this. I think they have a tremendous coach in Sean McDermott, who took them to the postseason 2 years ago. They have a rising second-year quarterback in Josh Allen. But I mean, Allen is making plays when it matters through the air and on the ground. I mean, I think he's ran for over 100 yards this season. The defense is one of the better ones in the NFL. But I think for this team to go far, Allen's attack has to improve, and he needs to put more points up on the board. And there's no doubt to me that this team is ready to compete for a playoff spot. But will they be able to keep up with the Patriots, Chiefs, Ravens? They've got to be able to put more points. They need more consistent play from Josh Allen. So I'll say they're a pretender when it comes to the Super Bowl. I think they're a contender when it comes to the playoffs, though. Next up, Anthony, I think you like this team a little bit. The Dallas Cowboys, pretender or contender?
You would have to think, after watching that game last night, that the Cowboys are the best team in the NFC right now. I would put Philly and Green Bay up there, but, Green Bay has an issue stopping the run, and also, Carson Wentz passed on them. That defense was exposed after the first 3 weeks. They played well, but they didn't really play any powerhouse offenses like the Eagles. And then you see on the Eagles side, really good run defense, but the number one wide receiver for any team, they just expose a really bad secondary. The Cowboys from 1 to 53 are the most talented and deepest team in the NFC, and you would have to make the case that they're a Super Bowl contender.
Well, I think there's no doubt they're a Super Bowl contender. I think 1 through 53, if they're healthy, I'd still take the Eagles. Maybe the Rams, but I like Dak Prescott a lot more than Jared Goff, so I would put them ahead of them. And
How
right
do you
now
take
the
the
injuries,
Eagles over Dallas?
Because I said if they're healthy, 1 through 53, they're better. They have better coaching.
On what about defense? Because you got to have a defense.
Yeah, and their front seven is good enough to limit Ezekiel Elliott, and they are good enough offensively with a balanced attack to be able to score in multiple ways. I'm just telling you this. Either way, 1 through 54 is what I should have included. Doug Peterson is infinitely better than Jason Garrett. The problem
last
in
year
Dallas
when
is
Dak
Jason
Prescott
Garrett.
Dak Prescott threw for 400 yards against the Philadelphia Eagles last season.
Yeah.
When we were still questioning if Dak was even an NFL quarterback.
I have
me.
never questioned if Dak was an NFL quarterback.
Most do.
Never question. What I question is,
and he put up 400.
My question is Jason Garrett an NFL head coach? And he's not. He's proven that. He's been there for, a decade or so? They've won nothing. They've had a ton of talent, and he hasn't got it done.
Not talent like this.
Not talent like this. But
and he never had a complete team offense and defense either.
Yeah. And
they were always missing something.
Yeah. And usually a head coach. So I think Dak Prescott will win a Super Bowl in Dallas. It'll just be after Jason Garrett's long gone. And it's not an argument because I think right now Dallas would be my number one team in the NFC. But I still think this. If you put Dallas and Philadelphia in a championship game, I don't care if it's in Dallas. Doug Peterson's going to play balls out to win that game, and Jason Garrett's going to try not to lose it. And that's going to be your problem in the end.
But that's the difference. Kellen Moore is calling those plays now.
No, it is a difference because the game plan still has to be approved by Jason Garrett. And going for it on 4th and 1 at midfield in a big situation has to be approved by Jason Garrett. Maybe Kellen Moore should be your head coach then. But he's not ready to do that yet. But I still tell you this, someday Lincoln Riley will be your head coach and you'll forget about Tom
you
Landry
and this
and
Lincoln
Jimmy
Riley
Johnson.
thing.
Yeah, because he's a genius. And if you put him with Dak Prescott would be an NFL Hall of Fame quarterback 5 years after he retires. So you just wait and see. You would be better off if the Cowboys just sucked this year, because then Lincoln Riley may come to you and then you can win something. But Jason Garrett sucks. All right. I tend to think he's like the white Marvin Lewis.
That's going a little far.
Not really. Neither one of them wins when it matters. They'll get you to the playoffs, but they're not going to do anything.
I mean, neither does Andy Reid. You not like Andy Reid either?
No, I don't like Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid is a genius with offense, but I think he's a shitty head coach because you know what? When you bring in multiple convicts to your team, it'll usually bite you in the ass, especially when you have a tendency to not run the ball at all. And you're going to play New England in January where it's a little cold, and you're not going to be able to outscore Bill Belichick. So I think Andy Reid is a good coach. I just don't think he is a great coach. Just my opinion. All right, next up, the Detroit Lions. Super Bowl contender. I can't even believe I said that in the same sentence. Super Bowl contender or pretender, Anthony?
They're definitely a pretender. You know, they barely squeaked by. I mean, they didn't squeak by. They tied in the season opener. They won a couple of games. The bread and butter of this team with Matt Patricia is supposed to be the defense, but their defense, you know, they give up some production. And Matt Stafford, although he played really good in week 1, last week, he looked like Matt Stafford of last year. So I think there's an identity issue with the Lions. And I also think they're struggling to run the football. We had a lot of expectations about Kerryon Johnson, but he's not getting the job done either. Eventually, if they can't run the ball, the defenses are going to get better, and they're just going to attack Matt Stafford.
Well, my question here is this: this is a team that did beat the Chargers and did go to Philadelphia and win. I mean, the Cardinals game, stuff like that happens in the NFL every week, where a team you don't think is going to win wins a game. Hell, it happened last week with the Lions beating the Eagles. But with wins over the Chargers and the Eagles, I think it's hard to completely write them off.
Yeah, but what Chargers team is this? They're beat up, no Melvin Gordon. Their offensive line's in shambles. They don't have Derwin James. This isn't the same Chargers team.
All right,
as
well,
last
how about
season.
this then?
And they played Philly with, they're both starting wide receivers were hurt. At least they had Alshon Jeffrey back last night.
All right, so the Dallas Cowboys are infinitely the best team in the NFL, and they've beaten, or the NFC, and they've beaten the Giants, the Redskins, and the Dolphins, Anthony. So what Dolphins team did they beat? Which Redskins team did they beat? What Giants team did they beat? If you want to go technically that way, then, I mean, we don't know if the Cowboys are any good. I mean,
but they beat them convincingly. They're blowing teams out.
They're playing bad teams, and they beat the
So
Redskins
are the Patriots.
by 10 points.
So are the Patriots.
We're not talking about the Patriots.
They played
We're talking about
They played the
Detroit
Dolphins
Lions.
and the Jets.
We're talking about the Detroit Lions, who have beaten the Chargers and the Eagles. Now, no matter what the injury situation is, the Chargers and Eagles, I think we all agree, are a lot better than the Giants, Redskins, or Dolphins. I'm just saying this. I'm saying don't write the Lions off yet. I think they're a pretender, but I think they are a playoff contender. I think this is a team that could win 9 or 10 games and get in. And I think the Chiefs game will tell us a lot about their defense. And if Matt Stafford can have a big game and they can somehow win that one, kind of like what we just said about Buffalo and New England, then maybe that status changes. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is kind of a no-brainer, Anthony.
Yeah, the Chiefs are definitely a contender. I just think they have some holes, especially on defense. You brought up their inability to run the football. Now, their defense is a little bit better than last year, but last year they were a bottom 3 to a bottom 5 defense. Now they're maybe a top 22 defense, but just that slight improvement could actually help in the long run.
All right. I said no doubt because I think it's no doubt they're a pretender when it comes to going to the Super Bowl. A contender to make the playoffs. They'll make the playoffs, but Andy Reid coaches them. They have very little running game. The defense is in the bottom half of the league. I don't see how you can be a contender in the AFC unless you have the weapons to beat the New England Patriots, and I don't think they do. I think the Baltimore Ravens would be my choice before the Kansas City Chiefs to give the Patriots problems.
I mean, I don't disagree with that take because the Ravens actually have a defense and they can run the football. It's just, do you trust Lamar Jackson? I feel like I'm a little bit higher on Lamar Jackson than you are, so I think that's what it comes down to. In that situation, do you trust Lamar Jackson to get the job done against New England? Or do you trust Pat Mahomes more?
How about this? I think it's possible Lamar Jackson only needs to score in the low 20s to beat him in a situation where you're in a playoff game and Andy Reid's the coach on the other side. Once again, all things being equal, you give me John Harbaugh or Andy Reid, I'm taking John Harbaugh every day of the week.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm a big Andy Reid guy, but John Harbaugh to me is one of the most underrated coaches in the league.
Oh, he's a great coach. Every year they're there. Even the last few years, or a few years ago when they weren't very good, they were still hanging around 8 wins, even with Joe Flacco going down for most of the year. All right, next up, the Los Angeles Rams.
I think they're a pretender, and I know they're undefeated, but Jared Goff hasn't played well and really dating back to, maybe week 10 or 11 of last season once Gurley started slowing down. Gurley hasn't had more than 15, 16 touches in the game. He doesn't look the same. But when Todd Gurley isn't playing elite football, this offense and more so Jared Goff, they just look different. Now, their defense is playing really good, but eventually you're going to have to score a lot of points, and I don't know if the Rams can do that right now.
Well, I agree with you. I think when you look at this defense, they give up 27 to the Panthers, 13 to the Browns, 9 to the Saints. They're very good defensively. Like you said, you got to question the run game. The other thing I question is this. When you watch Sean McVay now, it seems to me that his offense this year has been kind of thwarted a little bit by things that defenses are doing differently against his offense. I think they've made adjustments, and the question is, can Sean McVay make those adjustments to be able to get his offense back on track? We saw in the Super Bowl in the biggest game, he wasn't able to make any adjustments because he didn't even attempt to make any adjustments. I will say this, if Todd Gurley is healthy all year, they're a contender because they can play defense and run the ball. If he goes down like he did last year for 5 or 6 games, I think they're a pretender, Anthony. I think it's all whether Gurley's healthy or not.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next up, the New England Patriots. I think we could probably safely call them a contender since they're the Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, and they're the Super Bowl champions, and they're blowing out the teams they should blow out right now.
Yeah.
And they look better than they did last year.
Oh, they're a lot better.
Especially on defense.
Yeah, especially if you compare it to last year at this time. All right, here's an interesting one. We got the San Francisco 49ers. Are they a Super Bowl contender or a pretender?
I think they're a pretender, but I think they're very much a playoff team if Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy and correct some of the mistakes that he makes. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo's a gunslinger. The mistakes are going to come here and there, but, 4 or 5 turnovers like he did last week against the Steelers, a better team will put him away.
All right, I think they have a great defense, but 8 giveaways are worrying when you're playing Cincinnati and Miami. And I like this team. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I know that I had them ranked really high. But right now the issue is Jimmy Garoppolo. And it's not if he stays healthy or not. It's if he's any damn good or not. So far, he hasn't been very good. And you can say gunslinger and everything, but gunslingers usually in the end die. Whether it's in the movies or in a football game. Brett Favre was a gunslinger. He won 1 Super Bowl, and that's because Reggie White came to town to clean up the defense. John Elway was a gunslinger, but he didn't win Super Bowls until he had a running game and he stopped being a gunslinger and actually took care of the ball. So I think with Jimmy Garoppolo here, I think there's issues. And, I mean, I'll just say it. Colin Kaepernick was a better quarterback anyways.
I mean, I guess
I mean, he took him to the Super Bowl. He was consistent, especially the last 2
Alex
years
Smith
he was
had a
there.
little bit of to do with that early on.
Alex Smith had what to do with them going to the Super Bowl? Alex Smith was the reason they couldn't get to the Super Bowl because that was a really good 49ers team. He wasn't able to make plays in the situations where you need to make plays to win games. Colin Kaepernick was. But right now, I think Jimmy Garoppolo will be fine, so they may turn into a contender. But I do have questions right now from what I've seen so far this year and what we saw at the start of last year before Garoppolo got hurt.
Well, the 49ers team, especially on defense, they're a much better team than they were last year. They're young at receiver. They have a stable of really good running backs, and I think that's going to be the key. They need to continue to run the football and limit Jimmy Garoppolo to about 25 passes a game.
Yeah, but the problem is this. If you go play a Philadelphia with a really good front seven or a Dallas Cowboys team with a tough secondary, to be able to beat teams like that, he's going to have to make plays. And my worry is when he gets into that position where he's got to make those plays are interceptions because of either pressure from the Eagles' front seven or from the Cowboys' defense.
I mean, the Cowboys' defense, they're going to give everybody fits.
Yeah, I know. They're the greatest defense that ever lived. Maybe if they play somebody who can fight back, maybe we'll then find out.
We'll see on Sunday night.
No, we won't. They can't fight back. They got Teddy Bridgewater. That game's going to be.
That's going to be a tough. That's going to be a tough game.
Dude, if that's
I'm
a tough
actually
game,
a little
you
bit
got
worried about
issues.
this. I'm worried about this a little bit.
Yeah. Well, don't be, because unless Dak Prescott turns the ball over, you're going to win the game by double digits.
I hope you're right.
I am. So, just like I was right last night when I said the Packers would dominate the Eagles. Well, the interesting one, after that, I think then we find out maybe a little bit more about the Dallas defense because then the Cowboys are playing the Packers. And you know Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing the ball a little bit. Then you get the Eagles. Then you get the Jets and Giants, the Vikings at home.
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't know if Dallas is going to lose this decade.
Yeah. This decade just means this year, right? Because this decade's over by then. And if you lose in the playoffs, you didn't lose this decade. So you go to Detroit, you go to New England, you got Buffalo at home, at the Bears, host the Rams. So I would think the key is this. While the Eagles' schedule seems to be more dominating in the middle, it seems like the Cowboys is tougher at the end. So I think the key here is for the Cowboys to get like a 2-game lead by the time you get to like week 10 or 11, or to still have a 2-game lead.
You know, with the Eagles, if the Dallas Cowboys continue to play the way they are, and you look at that tough Eagles schedule, they could have more than a 2-game lead.
That's what I'm saying. You got to have at least that, though, because if you get to, week 11 or so, then you guys are hosting, or you're going to New England, you're hosting Buffalo, you're going to Chicago, you host the Rams, you go to Philadelphia. So my point there is, if it's a 2-game lead, and you drop the game to the Patriots and maybe a game to the Rams or the Bears, then all of a sudden you got to go to Philadelphia to win the division. And that probably wouldn't be much fun.
I mean, I don't know what. Dak has never lost to Carson Wentz, and Ezekiel Elliott has never lost to the Eagles. And I think Dak overall is, 3-1 or something, only one loss to Philly.
What does that have to do with anything this year?
So historical stats don't matter all of a sudden?
Not really. Teams are different. I mean, if historical stats mattered, Dallas is even better. But also, if you go 2 years ago, the Cowboys were beating Eagles, and Eagles won the freaking Super Bowl, Anthony. So what the hell does that matter?
Well,
and last year, y'all won the division, but you both got beat in the same round of the playoffs.
I mean, who did the Eagles lose to? Saints?
Yeah, by 6 points in New Orleans. You guys lost to the Rams by how many? I don't remember.
Not by much.
So it was pretty bad, is what you're telling me, because you
Not
don't
by
want to
much.
tell me. What was the score? You don't. Wasn't it like
I don't remember.
23-13?
I don't remember.
Was it 23-13? We got to look that up.
30 to 22.
30 to 22. Yeah. So y'all ended up about the same. You ended up the same last year because you got beat at the same time. It's kind of like for me as a Bengals fan. The 3 times we won the division, the team we beat out to win the division actually played in the division playoffs, and we didn't. So what the hell does it mean to win the division then? Anything else, Anthony?
No, I think we got, the only thing that I have here that Jamal Williams, who got knocked out of the game last night and stretchered off, he said he's okay.
Well, what's his doctor say?
I think he's okay.
Well, hopefully he's okay. But I would just like to say EAGLES, Eagles, Eagles,
Ugh.
Eagles. All right, we're going to wrap the show up. Anthony, you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the FF Face-Off?
Follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can also follow my show at the FF Face Off, and you can find the show wherever you can get a podcast and also on YouTube and Twitch. And we will be going live today at around 4 o'clock.
All right, guys, so make sure you check them out at 4 o'clock live today. You'll probably be able to catch that show later tonight on thegruelingtruth.com. Also, make sure you go to betnow.eu. Right now, promo code TGT100 will get you a matching deposit up to $500. That means whatever you put in up to $500, they will match. So if you put in $50, they will match it with another $50. If you put in $200, you'll match it with another $200. Make sure you go check them out. The lines there are as good as you'll find anywhere, and the payouts are quicker than any place that I have ever used before. So make sure you go check them out. We will be back on the NFL show tomorrow what's today? Is this Friday?
Today is Friday.
Damn, we were supposed to pick all the games today, Anthony. I thought today was Thursday. Oh, we just lost Anthony. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. Make sure you listen to all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you find sports podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak. You there, Anthony?